Mr. Happy Living here, and I'm happy to be broadcasting from WITV7 in the beautiful Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina, USA. Hey friends, join me for a minute and just imagine how amazing you'd feel living the life you were put on this planet to live, doing work you love, with people you love and places you love, and all the while creating something of real value to others. That's what I call a life of significance. And I can tell you it makes a very happy life. And so can my friend Bakari Grant. He's my guest star today again, and he's back to share an update about his unique and distinct journey to his life of significance. And we're going to switch things up a little bit from our regular format because this is an alumni update. Bakari gave us an inspiring episode 33 interview way back in September of 2020. And now he's back for episode 175. And we're going to focus on lessons learned and the successes and failures that he's had in the 5 years since officially retiring from pro football and beginning his business journey. We're going to explore his insights about skills that he acquired in football that he's found translate directly into business, investing, and entrepreneurship. But before I begin my long list of questions that I've been excited to ask him, I'd like to share a poem that we created to thank him for being our guest star today. It's called Changing Your World, and it goes like this. From the gridiron's roar to boardroom lights, Bakari shines, his purpose ignites. A leader, a builder with dreams to invest, he's changing the world through his company, WellNest. WellNest thrives, its vision so clear, innovating care, bringing wellness near. With passion and purpose, his journey unfolds, a champion of health with a heart full of goals. So tune in, his wisdom awaits. On the Alumni Update, hear how he creates. Let Bakari Grant inspire your quest to build your world with purpose and zest. Hey, Bakari, welcome back to the show.
Very much. That was awesome, Matt. I didn't know you were a poet, my man.
Hey, you haven't been sitting around for the last 5 years, and neither have I.
Yeah, if I can, I'm gonna harp on you to get that poem and share that with some folks around here. That was amazing. I appreciate that so much.
Absolutely. So get us started. I want you to take us way back to 2014 and your dad's stroke and your family's solution to it. Just paint the picture of that time and your solution.
Yeah, I mean, wow. Okay, we're jumping right into it, right?
Yep.
So, and I'll take you back a little bit further. So I'm going to go about 20 years prior to 2014 and about 1994. Our grandmother, my dad's mom, had also just suffered a debilitating stroke, and she had gone into a nursing facility. She was living in LA at the time. We're up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so that was grandma. We went to her home, 2-3 times a year. We spent Christmas there. We, long holiday weekends and things like that. So that was kind of our second home down in Southern California. And so when she had this stroke, obviously it was debilitating. She was in a nursing facility at the time because we weren't there to take care of her as a family. And pretty quickly after that, she passed. And it was what I can only describe it for those that don't know. I'm only 37, so I was only about 7 or 8 at the time. But my experience with that, it is core to who I am as a person, because I remember 2 very distinct things, and it's hard to talk about for most people, including myself. But it was the smell of urine and what I would consider the smell of death. That's all I remember from that experience of her being in this home. And from that experience, after, we hired a private investigator because we had our doubts as a family at the time. And it comes about that she died due to internal bleeding and neglect. And so that's kind of a burden that our family has carried, as part of our family history. And it doesn't really come about for most people, including us, until another loved one goes through a similar situation.
Yeah.
And you really have to go back to those core memories and decide, or figure out why you're so against something. And so to fast forward 20 years after that, My dad had a debilitating stroke. I was playing Canadian football at the time with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, but I was spending my off season down in San Diego training, and I get a call from my sister that my dad had a stroke. We weren't real tight at the time, so me and my brother got together, drove down, picked him up from Las Vegas. He was standing on the curb, ready to go, all of his stuff packed, and true to most people's stories that we've heard ad nauseum over the past 5 years, and really I credit our family's authenticity and openness to talk about it, that so many people have opened up about their experience with an aging loved one. But our dad was there, and we scooped him up and brought him back up to the Bay Area. And so that's really where our journey started, with dealing with his health and his aging, and how we really viewed our father, as he was going into older age, with what has become one of his disabilities or abilities, depending on how you look at it. So we went through the journey of trying to find him housing and care, and that there wasn't really significant choices out there that we were interested in, I'll say, to say the least, after our grandmother's experience. And that's where WellNest was born. So
okay, and so you said at the time in 2014 you kind of built what you call an ADU for him, is that right?
Yeah, so it was a couple years after that, actually.
What does that mean? What does ADU mean?
Yeah, ADU, for those that aren't familiar with California Northwest, ton of laws have been passed in the previous, I would say, 7 years, are auxiliary dwelling units, or additional dwelling units.
Okay.
And basically it's a guest house. So it's a home built behind your main home.
Okay. And so the stroke happens in 2014. You scoop up your dad, and the idea starts to germinate for what ultimately became WellNest. But you took off and went back to playing football for another 5 years, correct?
That's right.
Officially retiring in 2019 after winning the Grey Cup. Congratulations.
Yes,
with the Stampeders. And then you jumped both feet in the business. So what was the catalyst that, after you retired from football, to launch WellNest? Can you take us back to those days? You're no longer playing football, and describe the moment or the process of how you decided to take this big entrepreneurial leap and commit to launching your own company.
Yeah, and let's go long story short, right? So went back to play football for another 4.5, 5 years. But prior to that, I graduated from Davis with an interior architecture degree. And I technically built my first tiny home, smart tiny home, in 2010. And I built it for my brother as an art studio. And I was adamant about going on a mission to solve the homeless crisis by building, movable tiny homes that, are the size of sheds. And that was going to be a solution, in my young blissful ignorance. But did go back to play for 5 years. And when I was released in 2017, I actually started another business with my brother. And that's the time after my dad had tried to live in home. We tried in-home care. We tried different facilities. And ultimately, the feeling when we walked him through these tours really felt like we were walking him to his, resting place, so to speak. And so we knew that that wasn't an option. And in 2017, as the law started to change, as the environment in my sister's house was not ideal, we decided that, hey, let's give this thing a shot. I know how to build these. I know how to design them. We talked with a couple of people who had designed specific units for seniors and independent living. And so we were actually operating a different business at the time when we built his unit. And after that, we sat down and we said, holy, we really found a solution that works for us. I mean, my dad was starting to thrive. He had his own space. He could do more things on his own because of the way that we built the home. And so we really started to see him get that sense of pride, that dignity, that independence, that thing we get as humans when we're able to do things for self. And it really moved us to say, I think we're onto something, but do we want to start a business around it? At that time, we didn't know. And we had a very long conversation. When I say long, we talked about this. We met every Saturday for about a year, I mean, 8, 12-hour days. This is with my 4 siblings. We're in a boardroom just talking it out, banging it out, and really talking about what the best way to approach this if we were to run this as a business. And ultimately, we came to the reasoning that if we could help one other family like ours, would we
Yeah.
do this? If we could help 1,000 families like ours, would we do this?
Yeah.
And the answer was yes. And again, that's kind of the foundation of the company.
So you walked right into my next question. Did you immediately embrace it? No, you discussed it for more than 2 years. Did you find yourself in those 2 years, were you trying to talk yourself out of it or trying to talk yourself into it? Or was there must have been some members of the family saying, yeah, let's go for it, and others saying, I'm not quite sure. So what was that process and that battle back and forth like for you?
Well, I mean, within that time period, we still have life. We're living life. I have kids. I was still playing football for part of that time. I won a Grey Cup. Like I said, my siblings were in business, and they were, high levels in different companies and at different points in their careers. I'm the youngest of 5. So it really was less of a discussion about if we thought it could solve a problem and more of a discussion about, is this something we're going to commit to, for the
Mm-hmm.
next 5, 10 years? Um, and is this something we're qualified to do?
Mm-hmm.
It was a passion for us, but that didn't mean that we're the best fit to run the business if
Yeah.
we didn't really look into it and do our due diligence to see if this is something that, we could successfully execute.
Okay. Great. And before we get into the business growth in 2019, I have a question about depression or regrets. And
Mm,
I know that my football career wasn't near as long as yours, but when it finally ended, I experienced probably for the first and only time in my life what I think depression must feel like. So how about
mm.
you? What was it like when suddenly football was out of your life? Did you struggle with that or not?
Yeah, interesting. I talk about depression and mental health quite a bit. When I first didn't retire, but when I first stopped playing football for it was about half a season, um, I got a chance to reflect on my career, and I had a really depressive year while I was still playing because I was injured for a majority of the year for the first time in my career, and I went through the dark times of not having that outlet, not having that love of my life to run to. So fortunate and unfortunate, I had already experienced that a little bit, but when I was
Mm-hmm.
away from the game, it really not only took a toll on me, but it made me look at the bigger world outside of football. Because when you're football, it can be really finite about your perspective on life. It's football. It's you have a big goal, you're
That's it.
chasing it. That's
That's
it,
everything.
and
That's
the
it.
world is there watching, right?
That's right.
Uh, but when I stepped away from the game, it made me look into other players, some other players that I play with who are going through real life issues, mental health
Mm,
issues. And so right when I retired, fortunately, the NFLPA has an amazing program with things that they offer to anyone vested or non-vested players. And so I took a mental health first aid course, which prompted me to start a mental health nonprofit. And
mm,
the focus of that nonprofit is finding and deploying resources for mental health aid. So that's people to talk to, programs to participate in, resources that are out there in the world. And so that was a big part of my transition. The first time I stopped playing for about a half a year, and then I went back, won the Grey Cup, and then fully retired. And that transition is still ongoing, right? It's
yeah.
5 years later, COVID included. It was more of a understanding of what did football teach me about life that I can
Yeah.
now translate into this next chapter of my life. And
Yeah.
we're fortunate guys, Matt. We went to Davis, so we I think had a perspective about what happens beyond football to some degree. Where I look at some teammates, I look at some former guys, some who unfortunately have passed due to mental health issues, and they were legitimately all in on football, and
Yeah.
that was life. So
Yeah.
fortunately, we I think prepared for that a little bit. We're prepared as much as we did or didn't want it from our coaches in the school, but I think it really did pay off on the
I'll
back end
tell you,
to give us a
You,
foundation.
yeah, but you said you're 37. I'm 63, and I can tell you, I still have dreams of playing. It's crazy, but it was,
Yeah,
and again, mine was a short career. Yours was long, so it just really becomes a part of your identity. And some
that's
people
right.
struggle, as you mentioned. Okay, on to
That's right.
business. Football's behind. On to business. In the early days, you've retired. You got your big ring, and you're now a business guy. What were you hoping to achieve with wellness? If we go back to the early days, what were your hopes and dreams for that company?
Um, and so that's a good question. We started this because we had a real intentional why. It solved a problem for us. It wasn't a business to start, it was a solution for our family. And so when we got into the business, there was absolutely some perspective about how big the problem was. I think our understanding of how big the solution could be was still undefined. And so I think our initial goal was, can we prove by helping another family just like ours have
Mm,
the relief? I mean, Matt, it's 10 years later. They gave my dad a couple years to live. He's driving his own car now. He's going to the gym 4 days a week. He's coming to
it's great.
Sunday dinner and sharing meals with, three generations of the household. So it when I say it changed the dynamic of my family, it changed the direction and the story of our history. It really has. And so if we could do that for one more, that was our
Yeah,
initial goal. Let's do it for
yeah,
one more and
yeah,
and see how it goes from there. And
yeah. Well,
so
it's such a beautiful thing. I mean, just the idea of keeping independence, adding a safety net around the elderly person, and keeping not keeping re-engaging with the family in a much more comprehensive way. It's a brilliant idea. Um, okay, so let's go from your hopes to what your mission was at the beginning, and has that mission evolved over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. The more intimately we understand the problem, obviously, our mission slightly, maneuvers along this journey and finds its place. But I think our original mission was to literally help families save lives. That was our biggest thing. Is if
Mm,
we can extend a life by a day, success. If we can extend it by a year, success. So
yeah,
that's our foundational mission. That's our why. That's why we do what we do. I think our mission now is much more closely aligned with the problem that we've really seen, and that uh, Matt, 10,000 people every single day turn 65. I don't know if you knew that stat. And that's from 2022 to 2030. 10,000 people every single day.
mm,
California is an, in the worst way, a really good example of what happens if you ignore the facts that are right in front of you, and that
mm,
20% of our senior population currently lives in poverty.
mm,
Um, that
mm. Wow.
number in itself, it highlighted such a deep problem that we had to dig deeper and just, it's not just maintaining the connectivity with families, but it's maintaining the connectivity with community. It's
Hmm.
maintaining the approach of dealing with our demographic as people and not from a medical standpoint. Historically, when we looked at nursing homes, assisted living facilities, they've come from a medical approach because it's been a solution to get folks who don't need to be in a hospital out of a hospital into a caring environment, versus saying, what happens if we get ahead of that? What happens if we already see
Yeah,
these elements coming and we
yeah,
build a home that can transition with someone as they age and maintain that dignity, maintain that
yeah.
human factor? And so we've expanded to communities, which was an early idea, but the legislation here in California has caught up because our housing issue is so big. So some of the things that we have going on right now within our new mission is we have a 200 unit community that's under contract and we're in development next year. That's
Wow,
200 people that otherwise may end up on the street, may end up out of the state, may end up further away from family, that we get to really help
that's
reimagine
great.
what their next chapter looks like. So things like that are what inspires today.
That's really great. Okay, so I saw something in your mission statement about the 5 Ps.
Yeah. The wellness 5 Ps,
Yeah,
that's core. I told you about our year-long journey and understanding if we should really operate this business. At the time, I had just finished reading the book Principles by Ray Dalio. And
Mm,
so before a business model, before a SWOT analysis, before anything else, we really sat down and identified what our values and our principles were and how we would approach business from that standpoint, from the day we open to the day we, if it ever happens that we happen to close, it's going to be based on us sticking to our values and our principles. And so the abbreviated version of that, that's more forward facing, is our 5P core values. And that's protection, prevention, proximity, price, and process.
Mr. Happy Living here. I love good things made for good people. That's why I love Happy Living's online e-course. It's an 8-week-long deep dive into you and the inspired life you want to live. The life you were put here on this earth to live. The one that you and only you can live. 8 weeks of lectures and ideas and topics and supporting materials and powerful self-improvement tools. All designed for you. All designed to help you create the tools and the power and the confidence you need to discover your purpose and to discover the life you were meant to live and to feel incredibly inspired and motivated to decide you will live your life to its fullest. It's all designed to help you create the unique and distinct philosophy of you and your inspired life. Go to happyliving.com, select our e-course, and save $100 with promo code WYTV7. And for every enrollment, I'll donate another $100 to WYTV7. For $300 and about 30 hours, I promise you'll never, ever be the same again. And we're back, and this is the Something Significant Show, and I'm your host, Matt Gersper. And my special guest star today is Bakari Grant. He's an innovator, an entrepreneur, and a former professional football player dedicated to fostering wellness and community. As the visionary behind WellNest, Bakari reimagines how we live by designing modern, sustainable spaces that nurture connection, safety, and health. Drawing from his journey in sports and business, he inspires others to dream big and take bold action, proving that with purpose and perseverance, we can all create meaningful change in the world. So, Bakari, I've heard you describe your transition from football to business as a wild ride with all kinds of challenges, wins, and rewards. And I know you've discovered 3 big insights about skills that translate from football to business. And before we dig into those, let's explore the challenges and the wins and the rewards you've experienced. So just give us a couple of the very biggest challenges that you've faced in your years as a business guy and how you overcame them.
Yeah, best way to put it is I'm the rookie in the locker room all over again, right? It's a long journey of, I think, for me, the biggest challenge is it's a long journey of personal development, right? You're in a new arena. This isn't something that, I've experienced in a locker room per se, direct alignment. But what I'm learning as I go through this journey is that there's so many tangible things that we pull from sport, that I've pulled from football, especially being a high level competitive athlete, is that there's no one who tells you how to translate a locker room. There's no one to tell you how to transfer mediating a locker room fight into a corporate atmosphere. There's nobody there for that. So I think one of the recent things that I've been challenged with is, as I'm seeing more and more of my younger brothers graduate and move on from football, my concern is that, they're going through these same challenges. So a mission that I've been on more recently is to talk about my story, to talk about my transition and things that I pulled from football and that I consistently pull from football on a day-to-day basis and apply to business. And I think one of those biggest challenges is you have to be recommitted to growth. You have to be recommitted to getting better every day.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. Describe a few of your biggest wins over these last 4 or 5 years and how you celebrated them.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we got a couple of annual wins. We always celebrate with the win every year with our team. Sometimes we go on full on vacation. So Mexico, we've gone up to Tahoe. We've rented a whole house, had everyone from the team come there, did some self development, some team bonding, team building exercises. So we always celebrate another year in business, right? It's not given, and most people don't realize, but business is hard, it's difficult, and anytime you stay in business for an entire year, you should celebrate it. So those are some of our bigger wins. What I would say is some of our more recent wins is we have a fun thing that we're part of right now with the NBA Foundation. So All-Star Weekend is hosted by the Warriors this year, so it's in the Bay Area, and the NBA Foundation, which is the nonprofit arm of the NBA, has put together a pitch competition for local businesses that are minority owned, and it's an opportunity to not only get funding but to get visibility, to get
Yeah,
connected to the local team. And so we just participated in the semifinals, and we were chosen as finalists for the pitch competition during All-Star Week. So that was a huge celebration for us. That was a big win. And like I mentioned earlier, on the business side, nuts and bolts, we just signed a 200 unit contract, which is our largest contract. It will propel us into our next phase of business, scale us up. It really kicked us in a fundraising mode again, but at the same time, that it's everything we've really been pushing for since the start of what we've been doing for now 4 or 5 years. So
that's
those
great.
are some of the bigger wins.
That's great. And the NBA thing, that sounds like a lot of fun. So good luck. I
Oh
hope
yeah.
you win that. Okay, what have been a few of the most unexpected rewards that you've experienced in your transition from football to business?
That's the easiest one. Our company was started by 5 siblings. That's a lot of kids, first off. So my mom's very involved with our business. She's very proud. She shows up to all the events, and she's very tied to what we're doing. Our kids are around nonstop. They're involved in what we're doing, and we did this for our dad. So it's very personal.
Mm,
Our why. So what the most rewarding thing is, all of our customers to date have become some version of our family. So, I mean,
mm,
we've met their kids, we've met their parents, we've met their grandkids, we've shared meals with them, we've had them down at our space, we've shared birthdays and celebrations with them. The real extension of our family, I mean, and this extends to partners, but because of we're a value-based business and technically we're a social impact business, we are very particular about who we partner with. So if you're not a
mhm.
value-based, principle-based business, it's really not likely that we're going to have a cohesive partnership. So our partners have become family. So that extension of our family, that reward, I mean, by far is the most unexpected
Yeah,
and the most rewarding thing.
yeah. Let me ask you one other, in that same vein, what's it like when you've finally got one of these new places put together and you get to see the man or woman go in for the first time? What's that feel like?
It, it's so bittersweet because it's, again, people forget this is to some extent construction, especially for our ADU customers. Ones we really get tight with are folks who are bringing folks home just like we did. And so it's almost like a sigh of relief that it's finally done.
Mm,
But the fortunate thing that we say for we handle everything. So as long as it may take, as hard as it may be to build a home, to get a home permitted and constructed, and then have all the facilities that you need for your loved one to age in place for the rest of their life, it's such a sigh of
mm,
relief because it's like they get to bring them home. It's done. We're here. So it's so bittersweet because part of our relationship ends,
yeah,
after this long journey, but you
yeah,
get this thing that you have for life, and not just a home, but it's about your loved one. You're
yeah,
bringing somebody back to that center core. So
great.
I think that's been the universal experience so far.
That's great. I like that phrase, age in place.
Mhm.
Okay, so on LinkedIn, so many months ago, I saw your three big transferable skills comment. And that's why I say, hey, come back on the show. We got to talk about this because it's great. So,
Yeah.
um, first of all, I want to tell you how much I love that you thought about and that you've written down these skills that you found translated from your football career to others or to business, and that you're sharing them with other people. I think that's great. I'm just so happy that you're doing that. And you say your top 3 transferable skills are criticism, being a good thing, work hard to get 1% better every day, and never, ever give up. Use grit or resilience and positive self-talk and everything you have to fight for success. You found is both a critical skill in football and business. And I would add life too, of course. But let's start with number 1. Let's start with criticism. Most people hate it. Why do you say it's a good thing?
Uh, um, and I'm sure you've experienced this, Matt. There's a point in everyone's career where you're dreading going into practice on Monday because you got to watch film, and the lights go down. Your coach has his clicker in his hand, and you get up on film, and it's rewind, rewind, rewind. What the heck were you doing right here?
Coach, I thought it was a run.
I thought it was a run. No, the ball's going.
Bakari, he blocked down. He ran right past me.
And so in football, it's a very hard thing to take. Criticism is hard for anyone to take, but especially when it's honest criticism. And honest criticism, I had a coach named Jeff Reinbold that said he likes to confirm with validity, confirmation with validity. And what he meant by that was he had things that he taught us in practice, things that we practice on a day-to-day basis. And things get monotonous, whether it's business, whether it's learning a new skill, whether it's playing football. You do the same thing over and you're like, oh, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And what he would do is he would show a drill that we ran in practice or ran in training camp, and he'd put it on repeat, have 5 different guys, and then he'd show it in the game when someone was using that skill subconsciously, not even realizing that they were applying that same exact practice in the game time atmosphere. So when you don't do that, it's always good to reflect on, whoa, okay, what went wrong here? Let's go back to the film room. How do we, how can we be better about this project? How can we get better? And it leads to the second thing. And if you're dedicated to getting 1% better every day, you're okay with criticism. If you're stuck in what is called the fixed mindset, a book that I always refer to people as Mindset by Carol Dweck. But if you're stuck in this fixed mindset, it's going to be very difficult to take criticism because you think that that's an innate trait. You think that when someone talks about how you didn't show up and block or how you didn't go out for that route, they're attacking you as a person. No, they're attacking your development. So now you can go back and redevelop those skills or learn that skill. So I think it's a extremely useful tool in realizing, because we all fall into it. It's different levels. We're not growth mindset or fixed mindset. We all have different points in life when we're on that pendulum. And so if you're taking criticism and you're taking it too harshly, it probably means you're moving more towards that fixed mindset. So it's a reflection of, let's get back into the growth mindset. Let's keep getting better. Let's keep improving. So criticism, foundational, fundamental to growing as a person.
Yep. And you mentioned, I think, criticism in football comes from the game films and all that. Also comes from the win-loss record and lots of other ways as well.
Yeah.
But in business, it's mentors and customers and supervisors and peers that are giving you feedback. And feedback can be negative. And I like what you said. If you're looking to improve, you say, "Oh, good, they gave me something I can work on." So now all of a sudden it's a positive thing. But then the other thing is, when I was preparing for this discussion today, in my business experience, I learned I call it tapping into the collective intelligence of the marketplace, looking for best practices. So it could be criticism that you found on a project that you're going to fix for the next project, but it could also be something that you learned that was a positive thing that you can roll across to the rest of your business. Your thoughts on?
Absolutely. I mean, and I'm the youngest of 5, right? So that criticism doesn't have to come to me. That can be going to one of my siblings who I watch do something. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And that's the benefit of being the younger sibling, is that you understand the value in learning lessons that other people are taught. And that, like you said, the market responds, and the market doesn't lie. The market is the market. And if something isn't going right or something isn't landing for people, you have to observe that, understand why, and then apply it.
Yeah, that's very good. Okay, let's dig into your work day and your 1% better notion. And it's very closely aligned with my favorite Japanese word, kaizen, which means small incremental
Absolutely.
improvements add up over time to yield great big results. So talk about the power of 1% better every day and how you view it as like an investor getting compound gains, growth on top of growth.
Yeah, it's Kaizen is a word that I've been attached to for a long time as well. And I was actually referred a book by a man named Paul Akers. It's called 2 Second Lean. And it is completely in alignment with that same belief of 1% better. This was a thing that I initiated maybe in my second year of being a pro football player. And what would happen is you come out to practice, okay, it's a Thursday practice, we're coming out of training camp. We can go through the motions or we can get better today. And every single time we walked on the field, my first thing was work day, baby. It's a work day, baby. And I still say that to this day, is that it's a work day, whether it's a weekday,
Gotcha.
weekend, holiday, it doesn't matter. It's, you can always get better every single day. You can choose to get better every single day. And we know you never stay the same. Either you're getting
Yeah.
better or you're getting worse. And in
Yeah.
football, it was very tangible. And you come out to practice and I ask you, okay, what are you getting 1% better at today? And
Yeah.
the young guys, after I became a little long in the tooth in the football world, they would joke around and say, "Oh, I'm gonna work on my hands and I'm gonna work on my route running. I'm gonna work on my blocking." No, no, no. You miss the point. What's one thing you're gonna get 1% better at today? So if you're gonna work on your footwork, work on your footwork through every drill, through every route you run, through every position drill, through every team drill. Work on
Yeah.
your footwork. In your warm-ups, you can work on your footwork.
Yeah.
And if you get 1% better at that every single day, I mean, again, the compound effect of that over time is what you benefit from. And that slow progression to greatness is what most people conceive with, oh, you're born with it. You have a
Yeah.
talent. Oh, man, that guy just jumps out the gym. No way. That guy, I guarantee you, I have a
Yeah.
niece. Since she's been 1 year old, she was in a jumper, just leaping and jumping and jumping and jumping. And to this day, she is the most explosive little girl I've ever met. And, people will say, oh, she's naturally gifted. No, she's been working that skill since she was 1 year old. And
Yeah.
whether she thought it was play or she thought it was a work day or she thought it was getting 1% better, it's the same effect of that Kaizen, slow
Yeah.
incremental improvement, towards greatness. So.
Yep, and I evolved my thinking into Kaizen and hold. So you make a small improvement and you hold on to that for dear life. And then the next 1%, it's this constant upward momentum, which is a beautiful thing. Okay,
Yeah.
the final of your big three skills that translate from the gridiron to the boardroom is simply never, ever give up. Tell us, why is that so important in football and in business?
Man, you joke about it sometimes, Matt. You say, "Oh, I got cut from 3 different professional leagues. I bet I beat you there." Hey, if within the time that I thought I was supposed to play football, if I got cut from 10 different leagues, but I kept going and I finally made it, then that's the story we tell, right? And I think an example of that
Right.
would a real life example of that would be my Grey Cup experience. What most people don't know is I had a brother that played in the CFL too. His name's Robert Grant. He won the Grey Cup in 2003 in his rookie season.
Mm,
And if you can imagine, that's the example, right? And so I get up to Canada and I'm fighting and I'm fighting. And we finally make it my third year to the Grey Cup and we get our butts kicked. It wasn't even close. Then I come back the next year, we make the Grey Cup again, and everyone's like, oh man, this is the year. And we return a punt return to win the game, and it gets called back on a penalty. So
oh my
another one
gosh.
down the drain. The next year we end up losing in the Eastern Final, had a ton of injuries, but the following year I go back on a team that on paper, historically, one of the best teams that's played in the CFL. I think we have one of the most winning records in CFL history, 100-year history. I mean, to the point where I get to the Grey Cup and guys who are my friends on the other team, oh man, congrats, good, you guys got it, you finally won your Grey Cup. And I'm like, whoa, 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 slow down.
We
We
have a
have a
game to
game to
play.
play. And,
Funny.
fast forward, we pooped the bed for the whole first half and we end up fighting back to put it in overtime and we end up losing in overtime.
Mm,
And my career was technically over the next year after I got released. And I
mm,
was back at home. I started a business. It was over. And I
mm,
said, I'm not really done with football, but I'm not willing to commit to that journey. I had a young family that I wanted to be at home with. And I was like,
mm.
I'm not committed to going on that long journey anymore. but I still
Mm,
wanted my Grey Cup ring. And
mm,
so when the opportunity presented itself and a team presented the need for a veteran wide receiver, I said, I'm the guy and I want to come and help you win a Grey Cup. And I was talking to 3 different teams, and my decision came down to the 2 teams that I thought had the best opportunity and the best culture to get to the Grey Cup and to win it. So to flash back to never give up is, you can stop doing something that doesn't make sense. That's okay. And I don't want people to confuse that with, just because I never give up, I never quit, I'm going to keep doing something that's just not
right,
working.
right.
No, you have to take into account reflection, learning, growth, and all those things. And one major thing that I've been committed to since about halfway through my career is understanding culture, understanding
Mm,
team culture, what's good family culture, what's good business culture. It's universal. And that, a good team on paper with a bad team culture will always lose to a team that has great team culture. Period.
mm,
It's when you see Popovich, when you see Phil Jackson, when you see Bill Belichick, when you see these historic coaches and these historic franchises, something is different. It's not just the players, because in most cases they don't have the best team on paper. And so when I went back to Calgary in the year that we won the Grey Cup, that was 3 years of lessons in lost Grey Cups that put me in a position to be on a
mm-hmm.
team that I thought had an opportunity to win it, not because of just the talent, but also because of those other intangible things that I thought made a difference, and absolutely it did,
Great,
because we ended up winning. So
great, great, great stuff. And Bakari, since I saw your post on LinkedIn those many months ago now, I didn't know how I was going to phrase this, but first of all, they're really great observations that these skills translate. And it's not surprising because success is success. But
absolutely.
I'm really happy, and I'm just going to say I'm proud of you too for thinking deeply about them
Mm,
and writing them down. And most importantly, as I said before, sharing them with others so that your experience can help them to become successful too. That, my friend, is awesome. And I wanted to tell you that. Now, I've got a few more quick questions about your transition that I wanted to ask you. So, can you think of 2 or 3 things that surprised you the most? Total surprises, you weren't expecting them
in business or in life?
in business, or in
In
this
business.
in the transition, in the shift from sports to business.
Gotcha. Well, first, I thank you for sharing that with me, because again, I think in this world of social media, in this world of oversharing, we don't necessarily share back. When people do give, I think it's extremely important to, say thank you, because, or we appreciate that, or
Mm,
because I think that creates that human connectivity again. It inspires to say, okay, can I share? Should I be sharing? So
mm,
thank you. But the most surprising things for me are how they translate. I think, again, I look at it as culture, right? So the way I like to put it is, I like winning culture, and winning culture
mm,
calls business, family, and sport. And that's been my, uh, uh, thesis for the past 7, 8 years now, is understanding that, studying it deeply, reading the books, understanding
yeah.
great cultures. And so I think the surprising thing for me was how simply they translate in very tangible ways. I always thought it was
Mm-hmm,
in philosophical ways that they would, be connected, but so many tangible ways that they connect.
mm-hmm,
I think that's the biggest surprise. The next biggest surprise is honestly a disappointing one, in that I think we would solve so many more problems as a whole, as a country, as a world, if we really strive to just get better every single day and enjoy this
mm-hmm,
journey.
mm-hmm,
I think too many people get caught up in the results, or caught up in the lack of results, that they either give up a little bit too early, or they redirect because they're not really committed to the why behind what they're doing. And
mm-hmm.
I think, to me, it's, again, with a strict mission of getting a championship ring, it allowed me to really decide what decisions I was making later in my career. And I think that's extremely important, because I had a focused vision. And I just think that I would love to inspire and see more people committed to their why and sticking to that why just a little bit longer.
Very good. What lessons, 1 or 2 most important lessons that you've learned about yourself in these past 5 years as you've become a
Mhm.
businessman? What have you learned about you?
I would say two things again. Number one, it's tied around the lack of knowledge in this world, in this business world, and I've just been extremely committed to growing in that way. It's just I've been dedicated to learning more about finance, learning more about marketing, understanding the business dynamics, business culture, how to grow a business. I put myself in the rooms with some amazing mentors that have, given me insight that it would have took me 20 years to gain. So that's one thing, is just my lack of knowledge. But I would say second is my misunderstanding of what successful business is.
Mm,
And I think that's twofold. I think it's number one, thinking that people figured it out, and then that's when they were successful. Is I figured out how to do business, so that's why I'm successful. I think that's a huge falsity. And I
yeah,
think it's way more tied to grit and
yeah,
resilience and your ability to figure things out and putting some really good people around you. I
yeah,
think that's fundamental and foundational. And then the second part to that is define success. Make sure you have a very clear vision of
yeah,
success, because it's not always money. It's not always built the
right.
biggest business. And you're a true living example of that. Is living a life of significance, living a life where you feel like you're serving your purpose on this earth. And when those things align, as far as your passion, your drive, your grit, and you're pushing for something that gives you purpose and significance in the world, that's when amazing things start happening. And it happens
Yeah,
almost too easy. You're like, wait, it's not supposed to happen. That people aren't
yeah,
supposed to be this on board with what we're doing. And
yeah.
it's been an amazing shift over the past few years, just getting our story out there, because again, we're passionate about it. It's real for us. It's our why. And people have jumped in ways that they shouldn't necessarily jump in, but to fight with this team and to build what we're building has been an amazing journey.
That's great. All right. Transformations, or as I call them, walking into the land of unknown outcomes, always has a certain level of fear. So, what
Mm.
fear or fears did you face and had to overcome to create a successful business?
I think the ultimate fear that no one talks about is you fear that you're not good enough. You fear that, that guy that did it before you, he was smarter than me. He had more
Hmm.
resources than me. He looked different than me. And those are all, manifestations of our fear that we're not good enough. And I think
Hmm.
that's most people. And, to share a very succinct way that it's been, that I understand it, is, the story of the buffalo, right? When the buffalo's traveling in the Western plains, when they see a cloud, they run towards it. When they see a storm, they run towards it, because they realize through evolution that the fastest
Mm,
way through a storm is to run at it, because the storm
mm,
passes a lot quicker. Whereas most people, in our brilliant minds, we run away from it. And
yeah,
when the storm catches up, we spend so much more time in that storm, because now it's traveling with us. So
that's
I would
great.
say that's been a huge lesson, is run into the storm, run into your
Yeah,
fears. And that's where growth is. That's where you find the best things in the world.
yeah, that's great. I didn't know that story about the buffalo. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, last one about legacy. And as I was thinking about this question, it reminded me of something I wrote in my book, Turning Inspiration into Action. It was chapter 14 that I described my own Viking funeral. Do you remember reading that, Bakari?
I do.
All right, so I'm curious if you feel about WellNest the same way I feel about my books. And here's what I wrote, just a part of it. And I was writing as if I was talking to the reader at my own funeral on July 4th of 2064 at the ripe old age of 103. So I wrote, it took the first half of my life more than 54 years before I discovered my calling to write books. I was sitting in my summer office overlooking our lake, and I made a lifelong commitment to transform myself into an author. I remember the passing of my Dow mentor, Dr. Wayne Dyer, on August
Mhm.
29th, 2015. I continued reading his words of wisdom for nearly 50 years after he died, all the way up till my peaceful passing in 2064. Then I wrote, if the lessons in my books can help even one person after I've completed this physical life, it will give meaning to every hour I spent writing these past 48 years. So,
Mm.
Bakari, what about your wellness business? What if it continued to support elderly people and their families long after you've departed from this earth? Tell us how that'll make you feel.
Real quick, before I jump out, I have one question for you, Matt.
Yes, sir.
Why 11 foot 10 inches long? You said the
That's
casket, the box.
that happens to be the length of my paddleboard, and we're
Okay,
putting the
okay.
box on the paddleboard.
It was very specific. Just had to ask. um,
So,
yeah, I mean, it's a hard thing to think about legacy. I think, you know, the extent that I've thought about legacy is beyond wellness. It's in a different lifetime. What I would consider beyond this is, I believe that I'm in my business years, meaning very passionate about what we're doing in our why. And I think that there's so many opportunities, people, groups that can take this to such a bigger scale that I don't envision it ending with me. So I don't attach my legacy to this business.
mm,
Um, I do attach my legacy to my family. I think the biggest thing, one of the biggest compliments I've ever gotten from a player that I played against, from multiple, I mean, people that have shared 10 year careers with me alongside of me on different teams, is the respect and admiration they have for the way that I played the game. And
mm,
I think true to that is what I would consider a legacy leaving behind, is that the way that I approach life, the way that I approach business and family with values and principles and a standard to operating, how my kids carry that on, how our business carries that on, how our partners carry that on, how, if any post, any podcast, any book, any video that I make, if I can resonate that through these platforms and someone picks up just 1% of that,
mm,
um, to me, that's such a bigger legacy than my name, our business, or any one tangible, thing on earth. So, that holds true. I know it's true because it's what I experience every day. I run into somebody that I play with, and they say, "Man, I know
yeah,
you didn't have the biggest highlights or the biggest hits. I remember this one play you did this thing, and man, I respect the hell out of your game."
yeah.
And that to me brings me so much. Like, if I didn't have to be in that room and my kids could hear that and my grandkids could hear that, and
Yeah.
they can take that with them when they're making hard decisions.
Yeah.
Oh man, that to me is what legacy really means.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. And that really is what this show is all about. It's finding that magic or that purpose in your life and living it. It's about creating the power that you need to take really good care of yourself and your family to get things done. It's about discovering and living in your purpose, your reason for being on this planet, and then using your power and purpose to give to others, as you were just talking about,
Mm,
making an impression on them, lifting them, helping them to live their lives better too, even after you may be long gone. And so that's what we
absolutely.
call our happy formula. I think it's evolved since you and I last talked. Power times purpose times giving equals happy to the third power. And that's really, truly, deeply happy.
Mm,
Sound about right to you,
mm.
Bakari?
I mean, I couldn't have said it any better. Obviously, you're a wordsmith, Matt.
Hey, so well, speaking of words, let's wrap things up with a lightning round. I love the power of words
Yeah.
and the capacity for great quotes to change lives. So I'll read a
Mm,
few of my favorites, and then you tell us what it means to you and give us the first thing that pops into your mind, because we call this a lightning round. The
mm,
first one's from Leonardo da Vinci. He said, "As a well-spent day brings happy sleep, so a life well lived brings happy death."
mm. First thing that comes to my mind is a Vitruvian Man. It's something that I'm very close with, proportions of man, but I think it signifies and exemplifies exactly that, is that everything in the correct proportion is a fulfilled life. I don't think anything happens on accident. So
Hmm,
um, just maintaining balance.
very good. This is from Shri Sai Baba, and he said, you mentioned something about this earlier, I think. He said, "You seek too much information and not enough transformation."
Mm. I mean, that's living in the moment to me. I think we get caught up in the past and the future and having the knowledge. And when you're in the moment, that's where transformation happens. And again, it's difficult, especially in business, to not think about securing the future or not think about lessons learned in the
Hmm.
past. But those things are lessons, but like you said, I think transformation happens in the present moment.
Yeah. This is one from my past. It said, once you get where you want to be, you're not there anymore.
That's life is a journey, and it's it ends once the journey's over. I think we can't get too caught up in the destination. Life is living, and kids remind us of that all the time. And I
Mm-hmm.
think our elders should also remind us that. And when we talk about independence, when we talk about dignity, those are the human factors. And I think if we keep those things in mind and understand that people are still on their journey, this isn't a landing place for them.
Yeah.
That's so powerful for us.
Yeah. This is an unknown author. I don't know who said this, but I love it. It says, no institution in America is freer to do what it wants to do than a business.
Mm. Uh, that reminds me of a quote by Pele, and I'm not going to say it exactly right, but basically, success is not an accident. We have the choice to get up and do A or do B. We have the choice to get up and do
Yeah.
C or do D. And I think it's so true to not only sport, but life, business, family is you want to be a better father, wake up tomorrow, be a better dad.
Yeah.
Make one choice at a time, one step at a time. And success isn't an accident. It's about intention.
This is another one from my past. It was a coach told me this. It said, your day belongs to another's dream.
Mm, yeah. And I mean, even if that's your future person's dream, I think quote I would say back is if you don't have goals, you're going to live your life accomplishing other people's goals. So
Right on.
even if it's your future self, I have goals in my future that I'm working towards right now, and I don't even know what they are. So I'm steadily working towards some goal that I find purpose in, I find
Mm-hmm.
legacy in, and I think if you don't have goals, you're working towards someone else's.
That's it. Okay, this is the show anchor. It's from Goth, and he said, whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now.
Let's go. That's every day. It's work day, baby.
It's work day. That's right.
One
Very good.
1% better every day.
Very good. Okay, folks, now it's your chance to be a giver too. If you can hear my voice and you were inspired by today's show with Bakari Grant, please share some love with our amazingly talented broadcast team by giving what you can to WITV7. They're a 501c3 charity on a mission to educate, empower, and encourage. They do good works with your kindness. Bakari, I love the way you bring vision and purpose to everything you do, from the football field to building a healthier future with WellNest. And I admire your unwavering commitment to innovation and connection and uplifting those around you. And I'm super happy that you've shared your passionate, pioneering, and purposeful spirit on our show today. Would you take a minute or two and share any parting remarks you'd like to leave with our audience?
Absolutely. I'll start with thank you, Matt, for being a bullhorn and an echo to all the amazing things that amazing people are doing in the world. I think people like you extend and expand small visions, universally across the country to people who may not have seen it otherwise. So I thank you. And again, for our company, the WellNest Company, based out of California, we build innovative, compassionate housing solutions for seniors, veterans, and individuals with disabilities. So if you're impacted by that, if you're inspired by that, please connect with me, whether that's partnership, investment, or ways that we can help you. We're always looking for other value-based people to collaborate with, to connect with, and to build relationship.
Very good. Thank you, Bakari. And I also want to thank WITV7 for hosting and promoting our show so we can keep interviewing inspiring guest stars like Bakari and reaching folks just like you, ready to create your own extraordinary lives. And most especially, thank you, viewers and listeners. You'll find links to social media and all things Bakari Grant. Find him, friend him, reach out to him. You'll find his links in our show notes. And from me to you, dear friends, I love you and I want you to be really, truly, deeply happy too. So go to happyliving.com right now and download our free mini but mighty ebook called Making Your Mark of Significance. You can read it right on your cell phone in about 30 minutes, then give some thought about what we can do together, you and me, to improve the happy of your world, one person at a time. Till next time, I'm Matt Gersper. You are awesome. And this is the Something Significant Show.